There are mistakes people make once, and life forgives them. There are mistakes people make twice, and the people who love them still wait. But there are mistakes a person keeps repeating until love gets tired, patience becomes pain, and the people who once prayed for them begin praying for the strength to leave. This is the story of a man named Martin. A man who did not lose his family in one day. He lost them slowly, one bottle at a time, one broken promise at a time, one late night at a time, one apology that was never followed by change. Martin was not born a bad man. In fact, when people first met him, they liked him. He was friendly, he was hardworking, he could make people laugh even on a difficult day. At his workplace, he was known as the man who could fix almost anything. A broken chair, a leaking tap, a machine that refused to start. Martin had gifted hands, and for many years, those hands built a life that looked promising. He married a woman named Esther. Esther was calm, patient, and strong in the quiet way that many good women are. She was not loud, she was not dramatic, but she had a heart that could carry people. When Martin married her, people said he was lucky, and he knew it. At the beginning, Martin treated Esther like a blessing. He came home early, he helped her in the kitchen, he held her hand in public, he talked about the future with excitement. He would say, "Esther, one day we will build our own house. Our children will never suffer the way we suffered." And Esther believed him. Not because Martin was rich, but because he had vision. And sometimes, vision is enough to make a woman stand beside a man while he is still building. Soon they had 2 children, a boy named Caleb and a girl named Amina. Martin loved his children. When Caleb was small, Martin would carry him on his shoulders and run around the compound while the boy laughed. When Amina was born, Martin cried quietly in the hospital room. He looked at her tiny face and whispered, "My daughter will never lack anything." Esther watched him and smiled. In those days, Martin was the kind of father children ran to. When he came home from work, Caleb and Amina would shout, "Daddy!" And Martin would open his arms wide like a hero returning from war. But life does not only test people with poverty. Sometimes, life tests people with pressure. And Martin did not know how to handle pressure. At work, things began to change. The company delayed salaries. Prices went up, rent increased, school fees became a burden. Martin started feeling like the world was sitting on his chest. At first, he only drank with friends on Fridays. Just a little, just to relax, just to forget the stress. That is how many dangerous things begin. With the words, "just a little," Esther noticed the smell of alcohol on his breath one evening. She did not shout. She only asked, "Martin, have you been drinking?" He smiled and waved his hand. "Ah, Esther, it was just 1 bottle with the boys. Do not worry." And because it was truly just 1 bottle, Esther did not worry too much. But 1 bottle became 2. Friday became Saturday. Saturday became Sunday. Soon, Martin was not drinking to relax. He was drinking to escape. He would come home late, sometimes laughing loudly, sometimes quiet and angry, sometimes with his shirt untucked and his eyes red. Esther would wait for him at the table with food covered in a plate. The children would already be asleep. When he entered, she would ask, "Martin, where were you?" And he would say, "Why are you questioning me like a child?" Esther would lower her voice. "I am not questioning you. I am worried." But Martin had started hearing concern as control. He had started seeing love as disturbance. And alcohol had started teaching him pride. One night, he came home very late. Caleb, who was only 7, woke up because of the noise. He stood by the bedroom door, rubbing his eyes. "Daddy?" Martin turned and smiled weakly. "My son, come here." Caleb walked toward him. But before he reached his father, he stopped. The smell was too strong. The man standing there looked like his father, but something about him felt different. Children notice what adults try to hide. Caleb went back to his room quietly. That night, Esther cried, not loudly, not in a way that Martin could hear. She cried into her pillow because she was afraid of what was happening to her home. The next morning, Martin apologized. He held Esther's hand and said, "I am sorry. I do not know what came over me. It will not happen again." Esther looked at him. She wanted to believe him. So she did. Because love often gives chances long after wisdom has started warning. For a few days, Martin changed. He came home early. He played with the children. He bought bread and milk. He even helped Caleb with homework. Esther felt hope return to her chest. But hope built on words alone is fragile. The drinking returned. This time, worse, Martin started using house money. Money meant for food disappeared. Money meant for school fees disappeared. Esther would open the drawer and find nothing. When she asked, Martin would become defensive. "Am I not the one who works for this family?" Esther would say, "Yes, Martin, but the children need to eat." And he would shout, "So now I am useless." That was Martin's problem. He turned every correction into an attack. Every conversation became an argument. Every concern became disrespect. And slowly, Esther stopped speaking. Not because things had improved, but because she was tired of being punished for telling the truth. The children changed too. Caleb stopped running to the door when Martin came home. Amina stopped asking him to carry her. The house became quiet whenever Martin entered. Not peaceful quiet, fearful quiet. The kind of quiet where everyone is listening to footsteps, trying to know what mood the person is in. Some nights, Martin would come home happy and careless. Other nights, he would come home bitter. He would complain about work, complain about life, complain about Esther. He would say things that cut deeply. "You think you are better than me? You and these children only know how to ask. I should have stayed single." Esther would stand there holding tears in her throat. Because there are words a sober heart would never say. But once said, they do not disappear. They remain in the walls. They remain in the children. They remain in the woman who heard them. One evening, Caleb came home from school with a letter. He had been sent home because of unpaid fees. Esther looked at the letter and felt her heart sink. She had reminded Martin many times that money had been given to him. He promised he would pay. When Martin came home that night, she showed him the letter. He looked away. "Martin, where is the school fees?" He did not answer. Esther's voice trembled. "Please tell me you paid it." Martin became angry. "Stop acting like I am a thief." Esther stared at him. "Did you drink it?" The room went silent. Caleb and Amina were sitting in the corner. Martin looked at them, then at Esther. Instead of shame, pride rose in him. He shouted, "I said, stop disrespecting me." That night, Esther did not argue. She took the children to the bedroom. She closed the door. And for the first time, Martin slept in the sitting room alone. The next morning, Esther borrowed money from a church friend and took Caleb back to school. She did not tell people everything. She only said, "We are having a difficult season. But some seasons are difficult because life is hard. Other seasons are difficult because someone keeps setting fire to the house and calling it stress." Months passed. Martin's drinking became known. Neighbors whispered. Relatives advised. Friends warned. His mother called him one afternoon and said, "My son, alcohol has destroyed many homes. Do not let it destroy yours." Martin laughed it off. "Mama, people exaggerate. I know what I am doing." But he did not know. That was the tragedy. He thought because he could still walk home, he was in control. He thought because he still had a job, he was fine. He thought because Esther had not left, there was still time. He did not understand that a family can leave emotionally long before they leave physically. Esther was still in the house, but part of her had already gone. The part that trusted him, the part that waited with joy, the part that believed his apologies, the part that looked at him and saw safety. One Saturday afternoon, Martin promised Amina he would attend her school performance. Amina had practiced for weeks. She was going to recite a poem. That morning, she wore her best dress and kept asking, "Mummy, will Daddy come?" Esther looked at Martin. He smiled and said, "Of course I will come. I would never miss it." Amina believed him. Children always want to believe their parents. Esther and the children went ahead. They kept saving a seat for Martin. The program began. Children sang, parents clapped. Amina kept turning to look at the entrance. Every time someone walked in, her eyes lifted, but Martin did not come. When her name was called, Amina walked to the front. She looked at the empty seat beside her mother. Then she recited her poem with a small voice. Esther clapped with tears in her eyes. After the event, they found Martin outside a bar near the main road. He was laughing with friends, still wearing the shirt he had promised to wear to the school. Amina saw him first. She did not cry. She just held her mother's dress and looked down. That hurt Esther more than tears. Because when children stop crying, sometimes it means they have accepted disappointment as normal. That evening, Esther asked Martin, "Do you know what you did today?" Martin rubbed his forehead. "I forgot." Esther whispered, "No, Martin, you chose." He looked irritated. "Esther, I said I forgot. What more do you want from me?" Esther looked at him for a long time. Then she said, "I want my children to stop being broken by the person who is supposed to protect them." Martin stood up. "So now I am breaking them." Esther did not shout. She did not argue. She only said, "Yes." That one word entered the room like thunder. Martin raised his hand as if to point at her, but Esther stepped back. Caleb saw it. Martin did not hit her, but Caleb saw enough. From that day, Caleb's eyes changed when he looked at his father. Respect did not disappear in one moment, but fear took its place, and fear is not respect. Martin continued drinking. He lost his job after missing work too many times. At first, he blamed the company. Then he blamed his manager. Then he blamed the economy. Then he blamed Esther for stressing him. But deep inside, he knew the truth. He had been warned. He had been given chances. He had been forgiven many times. But he kept choosing the bottle over responsibility. Without a job, the house became worse. Esther started selling vegetables at the market to feed the children. She woke up before sunrise. She carried heavy baskets. She came home tired, but Martin would still ask for money. At first, she refused gently, then firmly, then silently. One evening, he searched her bag and took the little money she had made. Esther found the empty purse and sat down slowly. That money was meant for food, for the children, for survival. When Martin returned later, drunk, Esther was waiting, not angry, not shouting, just calm. And sometimes calm is more serious than anger. She said, "Martin, I cannot do this anymore." He laughed. "Do what? Live like this?" His face changed. "So you want to leave me?" Esther looked at him with tired eyes. "I have been begging you to come back to us for years. You are the one who left first." Martin shouted, "I am here!" Esther shook her head. "No, your body is here. But the husband I married is gone. Father my children loved is gone." Martin's voice softened for a moment. "Esther, I will change." She closed her eyes. Those words again. The same words, the same promise, the same circle. She said, "I pray you do. But I cannot keep raising children inside your addiction." The next morning, while Martin slept, Esther packed a few clothes. Not everything, just what she and the children needed. Caleb carried a small bag. Amina held her mother's hand. Before leaving, Amina looked back at the house. "Will Daddy come with us?" Esther swallowed pain. "No, my child. Does he love us?" Esther knelt in front of her. "Yes. But love without responsibility can still hurt people." They left. Martin woke up in the afternoon. The house was too quiet. At first, he thought Esther had gone to the market. Then he saw the empty spaces. The children's shoes were gone. Some clothes were gone. Esther's Bible was gone. On the table, there was a note. Martin picked it up with shaking hands. It said, "Martin, I have prayed, I have waited, I have forgiven. But I cannot allow our children to continue growing in fear. I hope one day you choose healing. I hope one day you become the man you were meant to be. But we cannot stay and be destroyed while waiting." Martin sat down. For the first time in many years, there was no one to blame in the room, only silence and truth. At first, he was angry. He called Esther ungrateful. He said she had abandoned him. He told relatives she had broken the family. But people had seen enough. His mother cried and said, "My son, this is not Esther's shame, this is your mirror." Those words broke something in him. A mirror, that is what he had been avoiding. He had looked at Esther and seen judgment. He had looked at his children and seen pressure. He had looked at his mother and seen interference. But he had refused to look at himself. Days became weeks. Martin drank more after they left. But now the alcohol did not feel like escape. It felt like punishment. He would come home to an empty house. No children laughing. No food covered on the table. No Esther waiting with tired eyes. No small shoes by the door. Only bottles. Only darkness. Only memories. One night, he found Amina's old drawing under the chair. It was a picture of their family, 4 people holding hands. Above them, Amina had written, "My happy home." Martin stared at the drawing. Then he began to cry. Not the kind of crying people do for attention. The kind of crying that comes when the soul finally admits the truth. He had not lost his family because Esther was impatient. He had not lost them because life was hard. He had lost them because he kept choosing alcohol over the people who loved him. The next morning, Martin went to church, not because he suddenly became holy, but because he was desperate. He found the pastor and said, "I need help." Those 3 words were the beginning of his real recovery. Not, "I can stop anytime," not, "people are exaggerating," not, "it is just stress," but "I need help." The pastor connected him with a support group. The first meeting was difficult. Martin sat among other men and women who had lost jobs, marriages, children, respect, health, and dignity because of alcohol. For the first time, Martin heard his own story in other people's mouths. A man said, "I thought I was drinking because I had problems. Later, I realized drinking had become the problem." Martin lowered his head. Another woman said, "The hardest person to forgive is the version of yourself who destroyed what you loved." Martin cried silently. Recovery was not easy. There were days Martin shook with cravings. Days he wanted to run back to the bar. Days shame almost swallowed him. But this time, he did not make loud promises. He made small decisions. One sober morning, one honest conversation, one support meeting, one apology without excuses, one day at a time. After 3 months, Martin asked to see Esther. She agreed to meet him in a public place. When he saw her, he almost broke down. She looked different. Tired, yes, but peaceful. The children were not with her. Martin understood why. He sat across from her and said, "Esther, I am sorry." She looked at him carefully. He continued, "I am not here to ask you to come back. I am not here to defend myself. I am not here to blame stress, friends, work, or pressure. I destroyed our home. I hurt you. I hurt Caleb and Amina. I chose alcohol many times when I should have chosen my family." Esther's eyes filled with tears. For years, she had waited for that kind of apology. Not the apology of a man afraid of consequences, but the apology of a man who finally understood the damage. Martin said, "I am getting help. I do not know if I can repair what I broke. But I want to become a father. My children no longer have to fear." Esther wiped her tears. "I'm glad you are getting help, Martin." He looked at her with hope. But she said gently, "Healing does not erase history immediately." Martin nodded. "I know. You cannot ask us to trust in 3 months what you broke for years. I know." Esther looked away. "I forgive you. But forgiveness does not mean I am ready to return. Those words hurt him, but this time he did not argue. He did not shout. He did not accuse her. He only said, "I understand." That was one of the first signs that Martin was truly changing. Because change is not only stopping alcohol, change is also stopping the pride that protected the alcohol. Months passed. Martin stayed sober. He found work at a small garage. The pay was not much, but it was honest. He sent money for the children, not to impress Esther, not to buy his way back, but because responsibility is not a performance. It is a duty. At first, Caleb refused to speak to him. When Esther gave him the phone, Caleb would say, "I am busy." Martin did not force him. He would simply say, "Tell him I love him." Amina spoke a little, mostly short answers. Yes, no. "I am fine." Martin accepted it. He had taught his children disappointment. Now he had to teach them consistency. And consistency takes time. 1 year later, Esther allowed Martin to visit the children. They met at her sister's home. When Martin saw Caleb, his heart tightened. The boy was taller now, but his face was guarded. Amina stood behind her mother. Martin knelt down. Not because they were small, but because his pride needed to bow before the pain he had caused. He said, "Caleb, Amina, I am sorry I hurt you." Caleb looked away. Amina held Esther's hand. Martin continued, "You did not deserve the shouting. You did not deserve the broken promises. You did not deserve to wait for me and be disappointed. I was wrong." Caleb finally looked at him. "Why did you love alcohol more than us?" The question hit Martin harder than any insult. He wanted to say, "I did not." But he knew that children do not measure love by feelings. They measure love by actions. So Martin answered honestly, "I was selfish. I was selfish. I should have asked for help earlier. I should have protected you from my weakness. I am sorry." Caleb's eyes filled with tears. He did not hug his father that day, but he did not walk away either. And for Martin, that was enough. Years passed. Martin remained sober. He became one of the people who helped others in recovery, not as a perfect man, but as a warning and a witness. He would tell younger men, "Do not wait until your children fear your footsteps. Do not wait until your wife's love becomes exhaustion. Do not wait until the house is empty before you respect what is inside it." Esther never rushed back. She built a peaceful life for herself and the children. Martin remained part of their lives slowly, carefully, humbly. He attended school meetings. He paid fees. He showed up when he said he would. Sometimes Caleb still struggled to trust him. Sometimes Amina still watched him closely when he spoke. Martin accepted that healing was not his to control. His job was not to demand trust. His job was to become trustworthy. And that is where many people fail. They hurt others for years, then become angry when forgiveness does not come quickly. But the people you wounded are not responsible for pretending the wound never happened. You may change, but they still need time to feel safe around the changed version of you. One evening, many years later, Martin sat outside after a recovery meeting. A young man came to him and said, "Sir, my wife says she will leave if I do not stop drinking, but I think she is just threatening me." Martin looked at him with sadness. Then he said, "That is what I thought too." The young man became quiet. Martin continued, "A woman does not always leave when she packs her clothes. Sometimes she leaves while she is still cooking your food, while she is still washing your clothes, while she is still sleeping beside you. By the time she walks out, she may have already cried enough tears to bury the marriage." The young man lowered his head. Martin said, "Go home, apologize, get help, and do not confuse her patience for weakness." That night, Martin walked home, slowly. He passed by the bar where he used to waste his evenings. Music was playing. Men were laughing. Bottles were shining under yellow lights. For a moment, he remembered the old days, the noise, the false confidence, the escape. Then he remembered Esther's note, Amina's empty school seat, Caleb's question, the quiet house, and he kept walking, because some doors must remain closed, no matter how familiar they are. Martin's story is not just about alcohol. It is about what happens when a person refuses to face themselves. Alcohol did not create every weakness in Martin. It revealed them. It exposed his pride, his avoidance, his anger, his selfishness, his fear of failure. And instead of healing those wounds, he poured alcohol over them until they poisoned everyone around him. There are families today living inside this same story. A mother pretending everything is fine. Children learning to read moods before they learn peace. A father promising to change, but never taking the first real step. A home where love is still present, but safety is disappearing. If that is your home, hear this clearly. Love alone cannot heal addiction. Tears alone cannot heal addiction. Promises alone cannot heal addiction. Shame alone cannot heal addiction. Healing begins when truth is accepted and help is received. And if you are the one drinking, do not wait for the people you love to become memories before you wake up. Do not wait for your children to stop expecting you. Do not wait for your wife or husband to become tired of your apologies. Do not wait until the only voice left in the house is your own regret. Get help while there is still something to protect, because a family is not lost only through death. Sometimes a family is lost through neglect, through pride, through addiction, through repeated pain, through a person choosing temporary escape over permanent love. Martin lost his family before he understood their value, but his recovery taught him something painful and true. You cannot undo yesterday, but you can stop destroying tomorrow. And sometimes, even when life does not give you back everything you lost, it gives you a chance to become someone who never causes that kind of pain again. So before you raise another bottle, think of the people waiting for you. Think of the children listening for your footsteps. Think of the woman or man who still hopes the old you will return. Think of the home that is slowly becoming quiet. And ask yourself one question. Is this drink worth the family I may lose? Because one day, the bottle will be empty. The friends may disappear. The laughter will fade. The night will end. And you may return home to find that the people who once waited for you have finally chosen peace over pain. Martin learned that lesson the hard way. May you never have to.